Welcome to Jules Voto's Photo Focus. In this video, I will be talking about my experience with another vintage manual focus lens, the Minolta Rokkor MC 28mm 3.5 SG. This lens originally was introduced in 1966, and this particular version dates from around 1970. I believe it's the same optically as the 66 version, but it has the so-called hills and valleys focus ring, where the 66 version has a flatter ring. So let's have a look at the specs. Minimum focus is 2 feet, and this is a 3.5 lens, but there's no click stop at f4, so it goes from 3.5 right to 5.6, and then the rest of the way to f16, it has half click stops. It takes 55mm filters, it's 7 elements in 7 groups, 6 aperture blades, and it weighs 8.6 ounces or 245 grams. This lens, like most lenses of its age, is all metal construction. I mounted it to my Nikon Z6 using a Photasi MD to NZ adapter. I paid just $30 for this lens and $11 for the shade in 2021. Now, manual focus wide-angle lenses are great for street photography because they have a focus scale right on the lens and can be pre-focused, and with smaller apertures can give great depth of field. So you just have to raise the camera and shoot. I took a walk to the 9th Street Italian Market in South Philadelphia on an overcast day to do some street photography. Now, overcast days, by the way, are my favorite type of day for street photography. I like the soft, diffuse light, which works great for many images. My ISO was set at 800 for most of the images on 9th Street, and my aperture to f11, and my focus was mostly set at just below 20 feet or 5 meters, which meant that everything from 5 feet or 1.5 meters to infinity was acceptably sharp. So how good is this lens? Well, first of all, I think a 28mm may be the perfect lens for street photography, with its great depth of field and wide view. Now, the central area is very sharp, and of course, the edges are not as sharp as the center. At f11, it's more than acceptably sharp. I also like the color rendition with this lens. Although contrast is not as high as with modern multi-coated lenses, I think it gives a nice vintage look. I feel the same way about the Minolta 100mm 2.5 lens from the same period. It gives that same vintage look. Now, since it was overcast, I can't say anything about flare. But if the sun was in the picture or just out of it, I think a modern multi-coated lens would have done a better job. Now, the 9th Street Italian Market is most famous for its produce vendors that line several blocks of 9th Street north of Washington Avenue. But there are also several butcher shops, cheese shops, and seafood stores, among others. Now, I was there on a weekday, and it was not very busy, but it's very busy on weekends and especially holidays such as Christmas and New Year's and Easter. Now, at those times, there are a lot of people walking on the street at the market, and that would be a good opportunity if you like to take street photography type photos of people. Now, let me say a few things about my thought process on some of these pictures. Now, on this one, I was shooting the flowers and window reflection when I noticed a man's reflection. So I waited a second until he was fully in the frame. Also, on this one, I did focus on the flowers. Now, a mirrorless camera really helps focusing a wide-angle lens with the aid of magnified view and focus peaking. Now, on this shot, I saw the woman walking past and I took a quick shot just before she was out of the frame. The next shot was just after she left the frame, and I think the one with her is more interesting. Now, I revisited that spot later on my way back to my car, and we'll see that picture a little later. Now, on most of these photos, I only made an edit using the exposure, highlight, and shadow sliders in Lightroom. Now, all the fruits and vegetables make for some very colorful photos. Now, if it had been a sunny day, there would have been a lot of shadows, making photography more difficult with the great difference from highlight to shadow. The best time to shoot the images of the produce would be in the morning if you have to shoot on a sunny day, because all the vendors are lined up on the east side of the street and the buildings would block the sun. By the time we get to midday, the sun is coming right down the street and it's very contrasty. Now here's that shot that I said earlier that I took walking back to my car. I shot it vertical, and of course it looks completely different than what I had done earlier. So a few days before my walk on the 9th Street Market, we went to my cousin's house. And I took the 28 3.5 Rokkor with my Z6. Of course, it was a rainy day, so I only shot a few images outside and several inside. This one here was shot at f11, and it's pretty sharp edge to edge. And this is a shot of her living room at 5.6. And if you look closely at this one, it is not real sharp at the edges. This was a flower in the window at f8, and then there's a few more shots here in the kitchen, and this one was at f8. You can see the color is nice and it's pretty sharp. This one was with the lens wide open at 3.5, and I did add some diffusion to this one. So in conclusion, I really like this lens. I think it's sharp enough, and I love the look of the images with it. Now, I did a video on Nikon's 28mm 3.5 a while back, and I will put a link to that video in the description below. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I come out with a new video every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. So I will talk to you at that time.